a man's worthiness is based upon his ability to provide and protect. The more he earns, the better he is valued. The more he can protect, the better he is respected in the society also. So if, let us say, we want to bring in a society which is truly gender equal, then in that case the narrative of men being expected to be protectors and providers, that needs to go off. A lot of work is being done to take this aspect out of women's stereotypical roles. Like, women, we want to give women the option to be a provider or be a caretaker, right? She can go ahead and earn if she wants. She wants to stay at home and take care of the family. It is her prerogative. But a man currently does not have this option. And without this option being offered to men, there will be no gender equality.
Hey guys, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us on another session of Dialogues That Matter. Once again, a very happy new year to all of those of you who are joining us for the first time in the new year. Like we promised, this is Dialogues That Matter, an initiative where we speak to different change makers from different walks of life who do great work in their own field and stand for different conversations that we believe need a voice. For that, we have someone with us today from an organization that we'd love to hear their voice and understand their opinion on things and the way they function. We have Amit Deshpande with us from Vastav Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us today, Amit.
Hey, hi. Thanks so much for calling me.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us on a Friday evening. As you guys know, today's topic is men in a patriarchal society. So if you have any questions at any point, please feel free to drop in your questions during the Facebook Live in the chat box, and we'd be happy to answer them. If not during the chat, then definitely after the interview, we'd be happy to drop in our comments if we cut short on time. Without further ado, let me just introduce Amit and the foundation, which is Vastav. So Amit Deshpande is actually an engineer by profession, no surprise there, and works as a manager in an Indian conglomerate. He got red pilled and found Vastav Foundation, an NGO working to highlight men's issues. He, as an activist for attaining gender equality, is fighting to raise awareness about often neglected problems that men face in the society, including male suicides, men's health, boys' education, absence of laws to give justice to men, misuse of gendered laws, etc. He believes that gender equality can be achieved and sustained in society only when rights as well as responsibilities are distributed equally among the genders. He is part of a team that runs the only helpline exclusively for men. We are aware that today's topic can be diabolically, we can have diametrically opposite people on the spectrum, but we'd love to understand this different perspective and try and have this conversation in a coexisting manner without any kind of major arguments. So please keep your opinions, short, and try and understand the other perspective as well. Without further ado, first question is that Amit, what you're speaking about, which is that when we consider, when you had mentioned, right, when we consider the structure of our society, we often term it as being patriarchal, harsh on women and other genders, but we think about gender equality as a process of emancipation of women from their traditional roles, and then them being confined to our homes. So the idea and the construct of patriarchy, what does it mean to you? Could you talk to us about that? Just the basic idea and construct of what patriarchy is.
Yeah. Hi, so Shruti, thanks once again for having this dialogue. I mean, we generally need spaces where we can share all these kind of topics which are considered politically incorrect. So firstly, thanks for that. Coming to your question about what we feel, what is the construct of the society, and as the topic goes, men in a patriarchal society, the basic structure. So we have been always told about the patriarchal system being unfair to women. Okay? And there are various reasons why it is said so. But what we felt is that there is the other aspect also of patriarchy, and which is which is equally bad, if not more, at least, to men as well. And it is in the interests of both men and women that we realize what it does to men, their issues, okay, how it stereotypes men, and the way that we run the awareness campaigns for women to understand their individuality, how their rights in one way are suppressed. Same way, we feel that men themselves don't realize that the system that we have been following, how badly it affects themselves. And what it, I mean, if it just it used to run this way, it was just bad for a few people, and it used to just be unfair. It was fine, but there are very bad ramifications of this. Like, we don't realize that a lot of men commit suicide in India. Okay, I mean, all over the world, the male suicide rate is higher. But then we don't try and understand why this is happening. We consider that, okay, men must be committing suicide because of economical reasons and all. Okay, but where that economic reason comes in, which compels a man to commit suicide and not a woman, okay, that is patriarchy. And when we talk about suicides in India, I mean, I was fortunate to do a study on this. Like, me and another student, PhD student, she worked with me. We studied the past 50 years of suicides data in India. And I mean, I myself was surprised about it, that the maximum number of male suicides are because of family issues. Like, around quarter of it, 24-25% of male suicides are because of family issues. And there are about 23-24% of male suicides because of illnesses. Okay. Now, this has got nothing to do with gender as such. I mean, so as you said, it should not be seen as a diabolical thing wherein we are push-pull, in a situation of push-pull, that one, how can you talk about men and not women, and that's that sort. But it is not about, race to the bottom in one way, that who is more victimized. It is not glorification of victimhood, or in any case, of this sort. It is about understanding why men are committing suicide, like why men are suffering from depression, and what makes the people feel that, oh, men don't need support. So that is the basis from where we started. Okay, what can be done, what is needed to be done, whether there is something to be needed to be done or not. So from there, our study has started, and what we do is we just support men. I mean, whoever are coming with the, we run a helpline. We're all professionals. I mean, as you said, like this is all our social activity that we do over our weekends. There are, I mean, we all like-minded people. We got together. We have been running this thing. There is the suicide helpline that is there on a national level, and we just help it out in whatever way we can.
Right. I think one of the important things that you brought our attention to, and I think which deserves a conversation, is the fact that how gender stereotypes can affect well-being of men as well, right? There is a gender stereotype that happens to women, of course, and there is we are all aware of that, and I'm sure every gender, for that matter, has stereotype that it kind of encounters. Would you like to talk a little about that and how that comes in the way of their existence, of men's existence, as a men yourself as well?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, the system that we call as patriarchy, okay, a lot of people would call it as gynocentry also. I mean,
Right.
there would be arguments over that. But
Right.
in one way, like, what is the system giving us? It is saying that women should be confined to homes. I mean, which is like more accepted statement. But what does actually it means is that women have been given the role of caretakers. They are the nurturers. Okay. And the other side of the coin is that men have been given the role of protectors and providers. So what does it mean is that a woman is forced to become a caretaker many a times. A lot of women just like it. I mean, they are like, they like to take care of the family, children, if they have pets, they feel that they are better caretakers or caregivers in of the family, and in generally for nourishment, in nurturing the family and all. At the same time, there are many women who would want to be protectors, providers, like go out and earn for themselves, be independent in the definition that comes up that comes across. So the other side is that men have been given the stereotype of being protectors and providers. A man's worthiness is decided based upon his ability to provide and protect. There is
Right.
this, a common meme which was there. Okay, study hard if Otherwise, if you are a woman, then marriage. If you are a man, then garage. I mean, it's a very
Right.
cheesy stuff. But then, in one way, it is giving an idea that what happens, like the way, like women, if they are not being successful, or they are not unique, way ahead of their peers and all, then what happens is, okay, they are like confined into homes. The average life is called as, okay, they just got her married and that's it. But at the same time, men are rated, they are graded based upon their ability to provide. The patriarchal system that we call it, okay, that it's I mean, the fruit of it is that even educated women, they would never go ahead and think about marrying a man in lower than their social strata. Okay, I'm not saying people should do or should not do, but I'm just giving you an observation. Okay, women always marry higher on the social ladder. That is hypergamy in one way that is defined. But this is also an aspect of patriarchy, wherein a woman would want a better provider than her, for to value the husband. It's not a it is like, I'm not generalizing saying that everywhere this happens. There are exceptions to all these things, and it is more and more getting accepted. But if we actually see the patriarchal definition, a man's worthiness is based upon his ability to provide and protect. The more he earns, the better he is valued. The more he can protect, the better he's respected in the society also. So, if let us say we want to bring in a society which is truly gender equal, then in that case, the narrative of men being expected to be protectors and providers, that needs to go off. A lot of work is being done to take this aspect out of women's stereotypical roles. Like, women, we want to give women the option to be a provider or be a caretaker, right? She can go ahead and earn if she wants. She wants to stay at home and take care of the family. It is her prerogative. But a man currently does not have this option. And without this option being offered to men, there will be no gender equality. If you're always going to raise your kids in a way wherein the woman, the girl, let us say, we will say, okay, you have to study, but then eventually in the back of the mind, in back of her mind, you put in that, okay, if you are able to earn, then good. Otherwise, you can just take care of the family and your life is still okay.
Right.
If that does not happen to boys, and we keep on telling boys, no, you have to, this is your goal, you have to be a good provider, then we will not be able to achieve the idea of gender equality that we all want to achieve.
Right. I think what I'm gathering from what you're saying is, honestly, it doesn't matter whether female, male, or third gender. Also, let's be extra fair and talk about all the genders. It's not about particularly where you belong, but it's also about, at the end of the day, equality to all. It doesn't matter where you come from, but make sure that everybody's rights and everybody's voice is heard and everybody is treated equally, right? And to an extent, yes, I do understand what you're saying, that as men, you become caught up and wound up in the system yourself, because there are certain expectations that come with men, and a certain way to be, a certain financial stability, and so on and so forth. A lot of those things, correct. So then my next question would be, you spoke about a gender neutral society. Is that just on theory, or is it really possible? And if so, where are we going wrong?
That's a huge thing for us to assess, okay, whether it is possible or not and how it will be. But let us say the whole society, at least it is agreed upon one thing, that there should be equality. I mean, we are, everywhere it is like an egalitarian society is what is considered like, okay, we all should be equal people. Distribution of wealth as well as distribution of rights, distribution of responsibilities, it has to be equal. So that is something that in our times we have accepted it. So if this is to be done, that is how I would like to place my answer. If we want gender equality, in that case, we will need to look into aspects of what are we giving to each gender, even the third. Okay, unfortunately, the third gender, it is not spoken much about, or somewhere the gender roles, the third gender is supposed to fit themselves into provider, protector, or caretaker in whatever they find themselves comfortable in. But at the same time, if you see, I mean, I hope there will be a time when third gender would not be spoken in hushed tones, It will be more normally accepted. But if you consider that particular time also, then I think they will be having a little more freedom than men, at least, because women already have this, if we call that emancipation, I mean, they have to a larger extent than men have about choosing their roles, what they want to. And again, it need not be like, okay, once you are a caretaker, you have to be a caretaker all the time. Let men also have that freedom that, okay, they want to work for 5 years, they want to take a sabbatical, they want to come back, whatever, that is something would be a just society in one way when we are talking in terms of only stereotypical roles. Okay? So it is possible. It's not that I don't see that it is not possible as such. We have already made a lot of efforts for women to get certain level of rights, and we have taken away their responsibilities. Like a woman need not be expected to do both the work. Like she has to work outside also and come home and work also. That change has already been happening. It will take time to percolate down, but that is already there. But the man does not still have that. Okay, that is where we come in. We are trying to correct the direction where the society is going. Let us say, to say that, okay, give this freedom to men also.
Right.
When we talk about why protector provider, I will just add that point is that I've said this several times. Okay, when we talk about patriarchal system, we don't realize that what was a patriarchal system as such. At the top are alphas, the betas follow them. Within the alpha beta distribution also, it is always, let us say, if there is any emergency, like a natural calamity, there is an attack by an animal or another person or another army, or there are floods, anything, a rescue operation has to happen, then in that case always it was the alphas which are rescued first. But within them also it is the women and children who are rescued first. Okay, so women and children of alphas, then possibly women and children in betas, or at the same level of alpha men. Okay, and then cattle and everything which is to be possessed. Then comes the option of rescuing beta men. Okay, like Titanic is an example. Like it is a very common one because people generally are able to relate to it quite quickly. So that is patriarchy. Women and children being saved is patriarchy, right? Now, when we have spoken about emancipation or bringing equality, we have spoken about giving women the power to choose whether they want to be providers, protectors or not. Okay, if in a equal society, if we are living in an equal society, there need not be choice based upon genders. So gender equality would mean that if there is a Titanic, let us say 100 years from now, God forbid, it should not happen. But if there is an emergency situation, okay, and if there is a choice of who to be protected first or who's to be rescued first, it will always be the weaker people. Now, it need not be based upon gender. If we do it based upon gender, then we're still not a gender equal society. That is something, maybe people will be able to relate what we are trying to say through this example.
Right. I think that is a good example to kind of illustrate this. How do we kind of perceive gender equality? So when you're talking, I'm trying to visualize and understand what you're saying. It's a little tricky though, right, Amit? The truth is, yes, we are living in a patriarchy, and while I do believe and I do understand what you're saying, and I have, of course, there are numerous examples, but I think there is a fine line between standing up for rights for men as well as people kind of taking people meaning men taking this as a pride and overusing or using this to their advantage, right? Which is what we see in most cases, which is why I think there is not enough voice or kind of people pro men's right. If I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, right? So how do you kind of find the fine balance to make sure there's a voice and we can hear this about men's right? Because like you're saying, it's, and I hear you and I feel you when you say that, and I've seen myself in my own family, where of course with gender there comes a lot of stereotypes, a lot of expectations, a lot of trauma, mental health, and a lot of other things, right, which we will get to at a later point. But how do you strike that fine balance? I mean, I'm curious as well.
See, first thing is what we're talking about, that men overusing it. Now, I would really want to see men using this in the first place. Okay.
Okay.
I mean, there has been a lot of work that we've been doing. We were, successful in few things. but mostly we have not been able to stop a lot of things that are happening in the society. Like example, we are able to relate immediately where the results are seen as, in the laws that are there. Okay. There is not a single law for a man to go ahead and file a complaint. If a genders are involved in a dispute, then it is straight away that a man will not have a recourse to justice. That is the situation that we are in. Forget about using something, overusing, though I don't even it doesn't even come to me that what overusage can happen through this. I mean, at max somebody is getting sympathy today, even if he has committed something wrong and he is getting sympathy. That might be the situation that you are describing. Okay, otherwise tangibly men don't get anything today. Okay, now on the usage part that you have spoken, now the other part is about the misuse. Okay, when you just one moment, I think there's somebody. So when you're talking about overusage or usage, and you want to mention that people will misuse it, okay, are we in a situation where we are actually addressing misuse? Okay, uh, would you agree with me that the laws which are defined to protect women are being misused? Okay? And is there anything sufficient being done about it? Just yesterday, there has been a viral news that the cabinet minister, ex-cabinet minister of India, who was heading the Ministry of Women and Child Development, she has been threatening men, saying that I will get people to file sexual harassment cases against you, false molestation cases against you, if you are going to hit a pet dog. I mean, can you just fathom the proportion of misuse that is happening? Whenever we talk about misuse, people come and say that, oh, it's only a tiny percentage of cases which are being misused. But are we really ready to think about it? How much actual misuse is happening? I mean, in any other civilized society, if we are talking about a just society, fair society, Maneka Gandhi, I mean, because it is all over the news, I'll not refrain from taking her name. She has come out and said this, saying that there has been so many phone calls. I don't know whether it is actually her or not, because there is no denying also from that end, from her side. But this is the news, and this is not a rare case that I'm coming across. There have been so many cases which come across wherein it has been completely proven that the woman has misused law against a man. In Delhi High Court, just about last week or 10 days ago, the Delhi High Court found that a woman had filed a false rape case against another man. The man languished in jail. He went through the whole recourse of getting bail and everything. He went through all that. And then she came up and admitted that, yes, I filed a false rape case out of fit of rage. The High Court judge said that since she is married and she has a family and she is apologetic, so she will not be punished. This is the gender equality that is being propagated right now. Should we accept this? Will any just, fair, gender equal activist accept this as justice? Okay, this is what we are trying to highlight. I mean, forget about men misusing it. What we are telling is laws should be gender equal, and anybody misusing it, either it is a man or a woman, they should be punished. It is not rocket science, actually. But we are being stopped from propagating our narrative. We are being painted as being misogynist. We are being painted as, all kind of patriarchal people, anti-gay and all. The whole narrative is working against us because they are, uncomfortable with the idea of actual equality. Since I was not there, I was not affected, I didn't know about this. Anything of this sort happens. But this is going on from a long, long time. 498A was passed in 84. It's been 33 years, more than that now, 36 years.
Right.
And, a 2-month-old baby has been charged of dowry harassment in Mumbai. It's not in some rural area. In Mumbai. What happened? Nothing has happened after that. It's still continuing. Children who are not supposed to be charged with criminal cases, they are charged. Nonagerians who are just, discharged out of ICU, they are put into arrest only to extort. When women's empowerment industry has become an extortion industry, okay, the cause, I shouldn't call women empowerment industry as such, but unfortunately, it has become an industry. The cause of women empowerment, when it has become an industry and that too of an extortion industry, feminists should speak up first, not we. Okay. If they are actually for gender equality, they should have spoken about it. They are not speaking about it. Since that's the reason we, as gender equal activists, we are coming and talking about it. And I think everybody should stand with us.
And what would you suggest as an alternate? What would you say is our way around this?
It's very straightforward. At least start punishing women when they are found guilty. Start punishing women equally. You know, there is a law which says that if a criminal is found to be a child or sick or infirm because of age or a woman, then they should be given bail. Only her gender qualifies a woman unless she is a murderer to get bail. This is the gender equality. Has any feminist ever spoken against this, that this should not be the case? Are we ever talking about equal responsibilities when we talk about equal rights? Without attaining equal responsibilities, without making people accountable of their actions, gender equality will never happen. As long as there is a CRPC 437 which says that, oh, since he is a man, he should not be given bail. But since she is a woman, she should be given bail. Straight away, your equality is thrown out of the window at that point itself.
Right, right. At this point, let me just check if we have any questions from anybody. Hold on. While we're at it, Amit, any one myth that you would like to suspend right away from your own learning and from your own experiences, apart from many things that you've already mentioned?
Yeah, in terms of myth, if we want to talk about, I would like to talk about this right now, because it's going to help everyone, not just men, also women. Okay. Maybe, it would be a good thing to talk about what India being painted as the rape capital of the world, and that the incidences that were happening in India being spoken about all over the world in the topmost newspapers and all. Okay. One thing I'd like to tell right now is, when we have studied the causes of this rape and what happens after that, who's actually raping and what are the kind of cases and everything coming up. It's been done by very prominent newspapers and all. For a year, the Hindu newspaper had studied all the cases in Delhi. What they found is that about 70% of the rape cases filed are not actually rape cases. How? I'll tell you. In India, a girlfriend can file a rape case against her boyfriend if he breaks up the relationship. Are we aware of this? First thing. Okay. And is this just? The second part. There is a definition of saying that a rape can be defined if a man has intercourse with a woman, even with her consent, but under a false pretext of marriage. Okay. About 40% of the cases, about 30% of the cases when Hindu had studied, they were all these kind of cases. Okay. There must be, reasons where a man should be held accountable if he is, cheating a woman into having intercourse and not really marrying and all that. Okay. But at the same time, when we define this as rape, and when we equate this with the rape, like, horrendous case of Nirbhaya that had happened, we are doing injustice to the cases like Nirbhaya. Okay. There has to be some kind of a differentiation in these. And the other interesting part is 40% of the cases are about marriage, wherein the girl and the boy, they elope to get married. The family of the bride, they put a rape case against the boy. This is in 40% of the cases. So we're talking about 70% of actual rape cases going out. Okay. Then there is one more study which says that in 98% of the cases of 376 of rape, the victim knows the perpetrator. The victim is not the perpetrator is not a stranger to the victim. So what this also means is that, there has been this narrative that, oh, women are unsafe, women have to walk when they shouldn't be walking in night and not in dark alleys. We need to have cameras, we need to have floodlights and patrolling and everything. What this has done is, this has made women not go out and roam around or be free enough just as men can be. This false myth saying that women are unsafe on the roads because men will pounce on them and they'll rape them, okay, which happens only in 2% of the cases. This is bad. This should not happen. But the effect of it on the girls who are just growing up, they are, I mean, psychologically they are made to feel that, oh, you have to be protected, you are not safe enough. And then at the same time, their relationship with other men also, it also gets affected, in the sense they are not able to go out openly. Just as a man would have a friendship with a man, a girl would have a friendship with a girl. A man and a woman might not have the same friendship until and unless that trust comes in, that extra layer of efforts, or of extra layer that they have to go through. Okay, this myth that rape happens left, right, and center in India is wrong. It happens through strangers is wrong. For any society, fear of a stranger is like, it's like one of the first things wherein people just start to go into their own cocoons. They will not go out and talk to anyone in the park. Will not go out and make friends with strangers on the beaches, because there is this fear of the stranger, right? At the same time, men also, they also have this fear that, okay, they will be seen as somebody who is not safe enough, so they will keep to themselves, right? So in this way, this myth, I think, if we are able to talk about this, that's even in the NCRB data, the National Crime Records Bureau data, it says that about 74% of the rape cases are found to be false. Okay, out of that, we know, I mean, 70% in any case are about the boy and the girl running out and girlfriend filing a rape case against her boyfriend. So if we actually bring these data out, then it will be clearer what is actually happening in the society. Women will not be forced by their protectors inside the family to not be free enough. They want to go out and do something, meet friends, or do some work also. They'll I mean, currently we feel that, okay, until and unless there is not a person accompanying her, she should not go out. And there are examples like this. And in that also, patriarchy comes in. You would see 40-year-old, 45-year-old women, they want to go out at night, and 7-8-year-old boy, he will be asked to escort them. I mean, that is silly actually. If there is an attack, there is something, then the 8-year-old boy is not going to be able to protect them. In this process, what you're doing is you're damaging that guy also, putting into him a false sense of being protector. He might do something thinking that he is a protector when he is actually not, and put himself and others into trouble, right? So these narratives, actually, we need to speak out. uh, I mean, the lesser we are able to put in about the rape cases as such. I mean, the more widely it is accepted that false rape cases are a major percentage of the rape cases that are filed, I think it will be good for everyone, right? And there should be really some definition wherein at least technical rape, as they call, when a girlfriend is filing a rape case only based upon a breakup. Because I have certain cases wherein the man has not even met the woman. She goes ahead and says that we had an affair, and we had intercourse because he promised me marriage, and that guy has to go into jail. He has to spend lakhs of rupees for the bail, the whole process itself.
Right.
That's something we can work on. I mean, if one person also understands this, and there is a change, then I think it will be great. We have to
Right.
start something.
Right. I think this is definitely one side of the narrative, and a lot of things that we can put our heads into. A lot of comments coming in. Durga Sriram says she never thought about it so far. Inderbir Vat says feminist or equalist always talk about rights of women and responsibilities of men, and not the other way around. And a lot of comments coming in from people, and no specific questions as such. Um, it's just, I think, a lot to take in, especially as a woman, and as someone who's been on the other side and has heard a lot. I think it definitely is thought provoking in a lot of senses. And thank you for the insights. Definitely a lot of points there. I just want to understand your perspective on, say, a matriarchal society and how that would function, and what would be would the tables turn? How would it be? Do we know of any such examples?
You must have studied certain. I mean, we don't actually have any matriarchal societies as such,
Right.
because still biologically men have 17% higher muscle power, and that has given them 100% responsibility of all the riskier and tougher jobs as such. So we can talk about matrilineal societies as such,
Right.
okay, wherein it has been studied that what makes patriarchy. Like, in one aspect is the inheritance, like the male inheritance that they get from their families and all. So we have examples of the Khasi community in Meghalaya. In that society, and there are quite a few tribes like this
Right.
all over the world. Indonesia has the biggest one, with about 4 million people who follow the matrilineal system, wherein a woman is given the family wealth, and then she gives it to her daughter. In some communities it is the eldest daughter, some communities it's the youngest daughter. They have their own reasons and justifications for that. So what happens over there also is, the inheritance, when it is coming to the daughter, the man, when he marries, he's supposed to go and live with the woman in her family. Okay. And a lot of men over there, they are trying to come out of it. Just like we see in patriarchy, we say that, okay, women should also get inheritance. We have this Hindu marriage happening. I mean, for the inheritance laws that are there, which have been changed, wherein a woman can also get equal proportion of family wealth. There, the men are fighting, and the reason that they are saying is that the worthiness of a man, is even lower when this kind of inequality exists. It's the same like what women feel over there, over here, men feel over there, and it's seen that men are seen over there only as someone who can be called upon for emergencies. Okay, it is more of like a there is a lack of emotion. You are only there to do something that others cannot do. Okay, in terms of emergencies, rescue operations, or as a security guard, that kind. And it is not every day that this happens. So what do men do? Because women are earning, women are getting the inheritance. They are more powerful. They are richer and all. So a lot of men, they take to substance abuse. They get into just whiling away their time, because when you are valued lesser, you are more disinterested to contribute, and that is what happens. And it is seen that in those societies, men die at the age, general average age is about 40. They just have their kids, and then they know that everything is set, their role is complete, and they just want to disappear. It's not suicides, I'm saying. Men naturally die sooner in those societies. And at the same time, how does it affect women? Women find themselves, I mean, there was an interview of a Khasi woman somewhere, and she said that when I see people from other parts of India compared to Meghalaya, I see that there is a lot of exchange of emotions, exchange of rights and responsibilities between them, and they are able to enjoy their lives more. In our case, once there are kids, then we feel that men are of no further use for us, and then we start to look down upon them, and then we lose our value also. Because if there is a couple, they will value each other, they will respect each other, and then they grow with each other, right? They help out each other. But when, let us say, one side is like completely depressed or finds itself unworthy, the other side is also not going to be happy about it. So matrilineal society as such, again, it is not equality. It is not good for anyone. Just like this gynocentrism or patriarchy is not good for anyone, matrilineal is also, in my opinion, not good for anyone. The actual egalitarian society would be wherein men, women, third gender, anyone, they are able to do what they want to. Like, they want to go out and earn, let them go out and earn. They want to be at home, and they want to nurture the family, they want to take care. They should have that freedom. And mind you, there are so many families wherein the man is a better caregiver than the mother. There are so many places. But still, if there is an option, if there is a discussion about, if there is a situation, circumstance which says that, okay, now somebody has to sacrifice their career, it will always, even now, in many of the cases, just there would be some exceptions wherein a man is made to continue with working and the woman is going to stop working. So this is something, if we are
Right.
able to iron out, we are able to bring this equality, then I think that will be more better, compared to what we were 100 years ago.
Right. Yeah. I think a lot of questions there about gender roles, about the way we look at men, women, third gender, and how a lot of things we should change in the way, at different levels. This is at society level, at the law, and the way we look at people. A lot of things to change. We can go on and on, and a lot of comments coming in. A lot of people are, indulging and, giving their opinions. But we can keep going on and on. I'd like to wind up, and I just have one question. The last year has been very difficult for all of us. A pandemic, and it's been very difficult, and I'm sure must have been difficult for a lot of people. I just want to know one thing that you learned from 2020, or you've been really grateful for, that you would like to share with us, so that we can leave with something really positive, and so that we can stay in optimistic and better spirits through the year.
Okay, 2020 as such, when all this lockdown and everything started, I would like to mention two things, since we are talking about all these things. One is that there were more male victims of COVID, and that again comes from patriarchy. Men go out more for being providers. They are more susceptible to catch this virus or any kind of diseases. We also see in the data that men die more sooner and more because of such diseases, even stress related diseases. That is one thing. The other thing is we saw a lot of awareness about domestic violence being faced by men. Okay, it might not be so for everybody, but when the pandemic started, the whole narrative was that, oh, women are facing more domestic violence and all, it was coming out. But then I'm happy in one way that a lot of men started to come out and talk about the domestic violence that they are facing. It is negligible compared to what, the attention that women get. But a year ago, even that was not there. So at least men have come out and spoken about it. People thought about, okay, what this can also be. Domestic violence is it's not gender based. It could be for anyone. So that is one thing. And really, I mean, we need to all to be thankful for all the COVID warriors in any way. Not only doctors, nurses, definitely they, but everyone. So I think something that was lacking, that we were feeling that the harmony in the society has been lost and all. I think we saw a lot of positive people coming out and helping, even in the face of death, we can call it, because it was not easy, at least in the initial days, to have that courage and go out and help people. So I think that was a very nice thing for us all to learn, that not to lose hope on humanity. That is something I would take from 2020. And
Right.
2021, I just hope that everybody is vaccinated as soon as possible and we just get over with this. We'll go ahead and we'll get back to normal lives like we were earlier, with all the precautions as soon as possible.
Right. Right. I'll just check one last time if we have any questions. If not, I think just a second. Okay, we have a couple of questions. So we have Durga, who asks, how do men... Okay, I lost the question. Just a second. That's how many questions and comments that are coming in.
That's nice to know. Good.
Okay, we have Naresh, who says, I have heard that as per our domestic violence law, if a man needs to beg, borrow, or steal to pay the alimony, is that true?
Actually, I mean, unfortunately, in our judicial system, it is an honorable judge who has said that a man should commit crime to pay maintenance to his wife. That is the infantilization of women that the system has done. I mean, if let us say there was one more. This is an old judgment, but there was a recent judgment again, wherein the judge says that even if a man is a beggar, he should go ahead and file. He should give maintenance to his wife. Now, this concept of equality is again thrown out in such situations. Okay? Able-bodied, educated, wealthy women who are working, they are granted maintenance left, right, and center, and nobody bats an eyelid. There is justification given about, okay, she has lesser salary, or that she has the kids, and there are a lot of complications in that also. Men die, to just see their kids. The custody laws are so bad. That's a very different topic altogether. I mean, the gender bias that we have, since the question has come up, I'll talk about it. The gender bias is so stark. Men don't get custody 99% of the times. Okay. Visitations I'm talking about. Custody is like very even further rare. People are not able to see their kids for 6, 7, 8 years. Not even see their kids. Forget about meeting them. And even if they are granted, visitation, it is sometimes in the courts. I have had men weeping on my shoulders saying that my child, he was 2 months old when he was snatched away from me. Now he's 4 years old. Today he addressed me as uncle. Okay. The father, what a father would be feeling about this. We are completely insensitive on those aspects. I mean, this is again patriarchy, this is again bias, and nobody is talking about it. And they expect us to not talk about it. This is something it comes to my mind. A judge telling somebody that, okay, a woman should be paid maintenance, come what may. It is patriarchy, wherein he's saying that the woman is weak. Have you seen any feminist come out and say that, oh, why is the judge calling a woman weak? When she is able-bodied, why she is being given maintenance, why she is granted maintenance when she is working, when she is having more salary than the guy, why is she being granted maintenance? Have you ever seen a feminist come and talk about this? If they are actually equal gender, gender equal activists, then this would have happened. They are not. They are, I mean, I wouldn't like to use harsh words, but they come out as female supremacists. That is the reason they don't talk about this. That is one conclusion that we can come down to.
Right. I think Inderbeat Bus says all laws need to be gender neutral and false accuser needs to be given equal punishment. I think the term she used, false accuser, and not whether it's a male, female, or third gender, irrespective of who it is, equal punishment. Yes, I hear you, and I think we just have a lot of questions coming in. I'm not even able to keep track. That's the kind, I'm not able to check all of them. Amit, if you could just have a look at the questions and maybe answer them after this interview, we can call this a day. Thank you so much. I think a lot of things to think about, the way we look at gender and the roles we divide, and the what really gender equality means, and how do we make sure that it is equal to all the genders. Thank you so much, Amit, for your time and for giving us these insights. Honestly, I learned a lot of things, and I'm grateful for that. Thank you. Wish you a very happy new year. And those of you who joined us, thank you so much. Amit will try and answer the other questions. I'm sorry I wasn't able to keep track. Thank you so much. And I will see you guys next week with another session of Dialogues That Matter, with another interesting conversation and another interesting topic. Thank you so much, and have a good weekend, you guys. Thank you, Amit.
Thanks so much to all the audience. Also, thanks to you for getting me over here and putting this topic across. We would look forward to the next weekend for the next topic for sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Amit.